I didn't want to have a formal presentation deck. So today's more of a conversation, interactive session, and I wanted to have the session more tailored to you. So before we start, I'm just gonna introduce myself. So my name is Eva. I have over 8 years for work experience in product design, also product management. I am a UX design turned product manager and now hustling at my own startup called Immigrant, where we help streamlining Canadian immigration because I want to empower other immigrants to be able to navigate the immigration system easily. A little bit about myself, immigrated to Canada when I was 16, so I guess a while ago. I have firsthand experience, all the challenges an immigrant could face. And that's why I started Immigrant, where I really want to help other fellow immigrants to be successful. And one of the way is to remove barriers to getting their visa and immigration done. And this is the exact reason why I left my full-time job. It was a pretty good job. It was a 6-figure job. Last year, I decided to quit my job and just pursue my passion. Other than that, in the past, I had the opportunities to work on various products, I think over 10 different products, and 6 of them are actually from scratch, meaning I was able to work on the product from end-to-end process, including market research, design, development, all the way to launch, which is, I think, is pretty unique experience. And actually, one of the projects I worked on got nominated for Forbes 30 Under 30 in the healthcare category, which is also really nice. And then other product I worked on was able to generate $1 million in the first year, which is really neat to see, your impact in different way. It's useful for users. That's why they're willing to pay the money. So that's enough about me. There are really 2 things I want to share today as what are some of the superpowers, we have as immigrants? And second is, what are some of the challenges an immigrant may face? And personally, what challenges have I faced and what did I do to overcome them? So to kick it off, I'm going to share some superpowers I think an immigrant has. And if you have thoughts as what your superpowers, are, please drop it in the chat. Again, we want to make it as casual, as interactive as possible, or else you have to hear me talking for the next, 30, 40 hours, minutes or so. So superpowers of a UX designer who is an immigrant is that I really think as an immigrant, we move to a new country, the culture is new, we don't know too much how things work. In a sense, that gives us a superpower not to make assumptions. Why is that important? As a UX designer, if we make a lot of assumptions, then, maybe then we include those assumptions in our design. In interviews, we may be, assuming some things, then asking leading questions. So one of the quality I think an immigrant has is that we don't make too many assumptions because everything's so new in the country. So in interviews, then we want to be able to be active listener to listen to why people behave certain way, because, we don't assume they do it because, X, Y, Z. So I think that's actually one of the superpower we have. Sometimes we felt like, maybe that's our weakness because we don't know how it works. We're new here. But in a sense, we can actually turn that in as our strength. That's kind of the number one superpower I think we have. And second, I think we are all really good learners because, moving to a country, you have to settle in, you have to learn the whole new transportation system, getting, I don't know where's everyone now, but you have to get familiar with how to travel to one to be, what job search tools they use, how does that work? There's so many things that we need to kind of relearn. It's funny, I moved back to Hong Kong just to visit my family. I felt like an immigrant again here because I felt like I don't know how things work here. I don't know how to connect because I wanted to connect with the designers and also a product manager in Hong Kong, but I have no idea where to find them. So again, I have to relearn all of these things. So as a UX designer, who's an immigrant, again, we often are given a task that's unfamiliar. We want to be able to improve a product. We have to relearn a lot of things or even dabble into a domain that we don't know before, especially for those who work in B2B companies, crafting solutions for other businesses. And usually those solutions are very, very specific to the business. It requires you to understand the business logic and domain pretty well. So again, we're not afraid to just go ahead and learn it because we've done it. It's a proven fact. We're able to move to a new country, so we're able to learn a new complete domain. Yes, please continue in the chat. If I forget to check the chat, I kindly ask Evan and Louis to remind me if there's a question. And then the last thing is, I think because we come from different culture, we are more receptive to strangeness, if you will, or things are just different than what we're used to. So I find it pretty helpful as a designer or as a product manager to be open to listen to what others have to say. And even though you may have a colleague who may work in a different way, because collaboration is such a huge thing in any tech team, for designers to collaborate with developers or engineers, you need to learn how to work with each other, right? So coming from a different background, in a sense, you don't immediately kind of flag someone as strange or whatnot just because they do things differently, because you understand that everybody does things differently because we have different culture. For example, I have a colleague who's from Ukraine. She's extremely straightforward. I think some people may find it a bit too much as like, oh, they feel hurt because some of the comments are really, really straightforward. But then obviously I didn't think so. But after, having one-on-one with that colleagues, they're just like that. They're really kind, actually. The fact that they want to give you feedback is because they care. Just small things like here and there, really help us to be able to collaborate with each other without making too many assumptions. So that's kind of the few things I think Immigrant has a superpower. Obviously, I think there are way more. The fact that we can also learn English. English is not my first language. It's really an amazing thing as well. So keep continuing exploring your superpowers, because I think everybody has different superpower. So that's kind of a little bit about what I think some of the great qualities and immigrants have. Let's move on to the challenges. Again, if you have questions, what you are currently experiencing, for those folks who want to break into product, what challenges are you experiencing? And, what are you feeling? What are your fears? Drop it in the chat so we can have a conversation. But I can kick it off by, I think the number one most common challenge most immigrants have is the language barrier. So again, language, English is not my first language. Yeah, presentation is scary, hey? Impostor syndrome, very, very, very good. We'll get back to impostor syndrome in a bit. But a lot of us are, scared of presentations. That's actually not unique to just immigrants. A lot of my colleagues who are, locals, they also don't really like presentations. It's scary. But for us, maybe English is the second language, and that kind of creates another layer of barrier that we may not be as confident as we want. We're afraid that people don't understand us. In a lot of meetings previously, I during my time in college, I always avoid positions that require public speaking or note taking, because I was afraid that I wasn't able to capture what everyone was saying quick enough, spell things properly and make a fool of myself. And now thinking back, I should have grabbed those opportunity, just kind of do it, because that was the time to make mistake. But for us, really, writing CVs and cover letters are also really tough. Understanding the workplace and taking the country. Yeah, those are all really valid. And I think also for UX designer, because English is not our first language, I used to also make spelling errors in my design mockups. It's pretty embarrassing when someone called it out, right? In your design work, you have a spelling error, but it's also not uncommon. Even for, I guess, local designers. So some of the things that you can do to overcome it, obviously to proofread it, those are the obvious ones. But if you really struggle with, I actually really highly recommend using tools like Grammarly. I know some of the tools may be paid, but I personally think it's 100% worth it if you consider how much time it could save you and like the errors that you could catch for you, and also just giving you the, you know, the peace of mind that, okay, your email, your design mock-up are good to go. I think it's totally worth it. I think those tools have some free versions out there. And by using those tools, it does not define you. Because I used to think, I'm not going to use those. I'm going to just write all my copy because I want to prove that I could do the job. But in a sense, you think about it, you know, as a UX designer, we should be providing value for user. We should care about the outcome, and how you achieve it is really your personal journey, how you want to do it. I personally find it really helpful to just leverage those tools. And also another thing is, when we talk about language barrier, I also used to have challenges during meetings. I may not be able to understand what stakeholders were saying. Also, maybe I was afraid that people don't completely understand what I'm saying. So what I also found really useful is writing meeting notes, writing meeting agenda. So before a meeting starts, I always send in a meeting agenda. So just to keep everybody in the loop, what's going to be discussed. And after the meeting, I always send a summary to the stakeholders just to make sure we are aligned. And if I actually caught something incorrectly, they can flag it right away. And also, the most important thing is a lot of people, when they have the meeting, they forget what was talked about, what's decided. So the next meeting, then you keep talking about the same thing. So having just an artifact as what's decided in your emails, I find it extremely effective. Okay, I'm gonna go to some of the, some of the chat in the conversation. Let's see. Anybody want to kind of take a pause? I have like tons of thousands of challenges I've encountered, but before I move on to the next one, is there one that people want to specifically talking about? It's a quiet group.
So I can jump in here a bit. So one thing, the challenges that when I got when first time joining, right? I think the pace of working. Yeah, like in Asia, our pace is like, hey, go, do. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
You're saying we're too slow.
Yeah, I mean, like in the USA, that's okay. Next week is fine. You can finish it, but I gotta get this thing done. Like, I think that to adjust to the pacing, it's not difficult, but I need to keep reminding myself, hey, there's a couple of things that I need to figure out before I can submit this. People are especially for you guys, especially to those that are just new here, like in the UX design community. I know that you guys excited, and usually when you're excited, you want to get the job done fast, but fast is not always good, you know. Yeah, but for us in Asia, usually fast mean good, you know. So that's kind of like a backflip kind of way to think about it.
Yeah, for sure. That's a funny one. How about, I'm definitely guilty for that one. How about people in the group? Are you someone who's also on the go, just want to get stuff done and maybe overlook some of the details? If you are, maybe give a thumbs up. It's an interesting point. It's a strength. It's a double-edged sword. It's a strength, but it could also be a weakness. I also used to like shipping mockups really quick, like super fast. People always say, "Oh, you're so quick," but then, again, I make spelling errors here and there, or maybe the flow wasn't perfect.
Happen to me all the time. You cannot.
I know.
Even though I'm
that's a funny one.
Yeah, even though I'm a lead already, like even my colleges, the one that actually in the London or in the US, say, Evan, you are too fast. Can you please slow down?
Oh, really? Like, let me breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in a sense, maybe it's also, a good way of thinking what kind of teams, companies you want to join. I've joined a team where we work on enterprise software. So for those settings, obviously, there are tons of technical constraints, other business constraints. So the launch cycle is much, much slower. I already worked in the cloud team, so our launch cycle is faster. But I know other teams, they launch every quarter, meaning that you're likely to be designing at least a quarter ahead, and then the development team build your solution the next quarter and then ship it. And for the clients, because they are enterprise client, they're reluctant to take new updates, because if you change their UI, sometimes they cannot find their favorite button and things like that. So it takes also time for them to be willing to update it. So it might take a year to measure your success. So you got to think about, is this something you want? But at the same time, those are really cool because those have huge impact on a lot of businesses. Just something to think about. I see in the chat that, some of the challenges is to initiate small talks. Totally resonate. Again, if you resonate with this problem, give a thumbs up. This is a hard one. It's like when you see a colleague in Asia, we don't say, how are you? It's weird. But obviously that's kind of the culture, in Canada, US, with my go-to is a bit lame. I don't know, maybe everybody can drop in the chat. What's a go-to small talk? I usually just go with the weather, what did you do on the weekend? Anything you notice through the Zoom background. Really is try to find something that maybe both of you connect with. Or if it's a big meeting, it's okay. You don't have to initiate small talks. Just let out talk. I think a lot of time is also just finding peace. Be able to be silent. I know it's extremely uncomfortable, but I think it takes a bit of practice. It's okay that we don't talk about anything.
It's funny because we started this conversation like, hey, Eva, how's the weather in Hong Kong?
Oh yeah. So that's also your go-to.
Yeah, it's always my go-to. Like, hey, yeah, what's the weather in London?
Yeah, true. That one, it's not the most innovative, but that one always works. You'll at least consume the first couple minutes, and hopefully your teammates show up and you can kick off the meeting. Yeah. Let's see exactly when people talk to me. I ask, what? Sorry. Yeah. Excellent. I'm just gonna scroll the chat. I think we covered most. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna move on to the next thing that I felt like I struggle a little bit is stakeholder management. So because of the language barrier, there were times I felt inferior because, I wasn't the best at speaking English. And also people seem to be older, touching on very sensitive topic on racial. I felt like being an Asian, maybe I was also kind of second class, but that's very debatable. Let's not touch on that subject today. But in meetings with stakeholders, I felt like I always need to say yes to people, and also to be be the yes person to show that I'm capable of doing my work. But that didn't turn out really well, because by saying yes to everybody, you're unlikely to be able to accomplish anything. And there was also a time where I transitioned into my product role from UX design. I felt like, when you go to a new position, often you feel like you have something to prove. So I was really tense at that time in meetings. I want to show that I have my own voice, I have my own opinion. So I kind of reject a lot of the things that one of the lead developer was saying. Our dynamic at that time was pretty difficult. So that was pretty rough time for me to go through. But I think in the end is really, again, being confident in your position. It's okay that you're learning, especially you transition into a new role, or you just got a job. People don't really expect you to take off, to perform well in the first 3 months, because they know that you're onboarding, you're learning about the domain. So give yourself some time to learn as well. And in terms of stakeholder management, be sure that you're listening to their input, but treat them as a source of data, not so much of a to-do list, or else it's just going to be killing yourself. How about Lewis and Evan? You two are the only one who are not so shy today. Any challenges when it comes to managing stakeholders?
What kind of stakeholder are we mentioning here? Is it like your manager, or is it like like the higher
Oh,
up?
anyone, anybody.
Yeah. You cannot believe that. I mean, like, you know that, especially PM. When we are talking to the PM, sometimes you talk with the brick wall, because like, hey, PM say, hey, this is what we need to do, because this is what can be sold. But we keep asking ourselves, is this really what the customer really want? Even though we say no, or we can't really say to the PM, hey, this is a dumb, stupid question, like dumb, stupid ask. This is not gonna work. We gotta show the proof. Like why this is not working, why this is not working. This is the reason why we have that, design process, right? To give the idea and then failing it fast, so we can tell to this PM or this stakeholder, say, hey, this idea is nonsense. Can we think something else that is worth my time? Basically, that's what I'm trying to say.
That's the truth. I see.
That every day, you cannot tell me, like, almost every day in my life, I've been asked to do this. Even like small kind of things, especially in Expedia, small little thing can take forever to be approved and can costly a lot. But if it doesn't broke, and doesn't disrupt the experience, why do you need to change it? You have to know the reason why.
That's really funny, since I'm kind of on the other side of the boat. Sometimes definitely guilty for that. But I think it's also the matter of collaboration. As I always prefer PM and designers have a pretty close relationship. I used to do like almost daily one-on-ones with my designer, especially when he was just starting in the team, so that he's comfortable telling me if I'm doing something dumb or prioritizing something that may not be useful to the users. However, I think a lot of times, I can see that designer feel pretty frustrated. It's like, oh, why are we working on a certain problem over the other? And when they have new idea, that seems like a pretty good idea that never get prioritized. It's hard because PMs always, there are tons of requests coming from different stakeholders. And then usually the one designers suggest, they are really good, but I think maybe this is also maybe a thing maybe designers need to be aware of, to speak PM's language, in which is usually the viability of the product. Can it increase the revenue? What problem is it solving for the business? Especially for B2B software, there's like the buyer, the people who actually pay for it, and there's end users. As designers, I think we are gravitated to solving user problem, right? How the system work. But if you take a step back, we need to solve the problem for everybody, for the business. So more than just the end users. And in fact, a lot of times the end users don't get any say. The buyers purchase, some executive level, maybe in their company, decided we're going to use Jira over Asana. The end user might like Asana better than Jira, but they have no choice. That's just they need to make a decision in terms of what to use. And obviously, those solutions is way less user friendly than Jira or Asana. So again, you kind of need to understand the dynamic between the teams and how you can make impact. And I think that's kind of one of the things why the name product designer is trending over UX UI designer versus, before we were focusing on the wireframing piece, the prototyping piece, on the usability piece. But now I think the expectation towards the designer, it's getting more and more. You need to understand the business. You need to know how to work with teams.
Even in the level 1, you still need to think about it. You already need to think about it. It's not like, hey, let's wait until later when you are like a second level or like senior level. No, you have to think from now on, because especially UX design evolves so quickly. Like I still remember last year you just need to think about how the user use your product. No, it's not just how user use the product, but now how can the business get something out of that? Like Like what you say,
Absolutely.
Eva. What's the point to changing the experience? Is it gonna get the click-through rate like get bigger? You know, if click-through rate get bigger, it's mean that you can generate more money out of it. Business thinking.
Absolutely.
Business thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. For those who are, who want to break into design, I know it's a bit overwhelming. We say you have to do this and that. But in truth, if you're just learning about the basics of design, I just want to tell you like 80% of what a designer does is really understanding the problem, the insight that you get from user research and whatnot. And really 20% is about the crafting part, which is like the wireframing, the prototyping. I think it's changing now, but in the past, I've seen a lot of designers invest tons of times in terms of crafting their UI portion, which is the wireframing prototyping part. But in a lot of interviews, what we focus on is really the UX. Do you understand, the user experience? What user research method did you do, and why? Why did you do that? What did you learn, and how did your learning get reflected in your design decision? Those are the nuggets that we are looking for, instead of I think back in the days, maybe like 10 years ago, what is that? Dribble and Behance, those are pretty popular, where you just show like a really nice, end product and really nice UI. That was kind of it. But it's definitely different now.
Yeah.
UX and business understanding are keys.
Iran have a question there. My colleagues are good asking questions in the meeting, but I need more time to generate mine. Does anyone have this kind of challenges? What do you think, Eva? Do you have this kind of challenges?
Those 100%, a challenge that I've encountered. Like Irene, I don't think it's just you. I'm sure everybody here has similar issue. Even for people who are not an immigrant, how do you ask good question? Again, I think depending on where you at, I felt insecure at the beginning of I also didn't know what to ask. I had no input. When they say, "Oh, what do you think?" I had no opinion. Sometimes it's okay, especially at the beginning of your maybe your onboarding with a team. The truth is, you just don't have opinion because you don't understand the product deep enough. And there were times I just tried to force some feedback or opinion. Well, I will tell you that didn't go well. People are like, "What are you saying?" I tried. You could try to, but it's also okay to make peace with yourself to say that, I need to spend some time to understand this domain and product more before I can give quality input. But there are times that, maybe you feel like you do understand the domain pretty well. You're just not someone who can think quick on the spot. That's okay too. If they send in, for example, like meeting agenda, you can already start thinking about the questions before the meeting. If there's no agenda, that's okay. They're going to be discussing things, right? You can kind of almost have like a template of questions. For example, if it's a design kickoff meeting, this guaranteed question that you probably should be asking, who are the user, what are the pain points, if those are not included, in the kickoff meeting. So my suggestion is writing those questions in advance, or I guess that's the only advice, writing those questions in advance if you're not someone who can think super quick on the spot. And second is that give yourself some time to actually be immersed with the domain so that you can actually have an opinion. And it's totally okay if you have nothing to say.
Yeah, so I can relate to that quite a bit, Eva. Like, again, doesn't ask question doesn't mean that you're not participating. Sometimes you need time for you to think. Like me, myself, in the big meeting and stuff like that. Like, hey, can you give me a feedback? I don't really give a feedback right away. Sometimes, hey, can you give me a couple of like 30 minutes or 1 hour so I can, look at this even better and I can give you a feedback, That's me. Like people knows me because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not a fast thinker per se.
Yeah.
I want to have the my answer like constructed before I even give it to you the answer. So what I'm saying is that if you don't have the question right away, they're not gonna judge you based on speed, but based if they're asking you about the feedback right away, you have to answer it, but you have to explain why you cannot answer like 100%. You know, because
Yeah,
transparency.
that's a perfect answer, Evan. I think a lot of people appreciate that if you have nothing to say, just don't say it. I've been in so many meetings, people say stuff for the sake of filling the gap. I appreciate teammates that are more quiet, if you will, because they are thinking. The time that they are speaking, they are really, they have thought about it. They're not just like blah 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 saying
Exactly.
almost like small talks, right? So I think it's the matter of also respecting others' time, and it's completely professional if you say, I don't have the answer on top of my head now. Let me think about it and get back to you. I think that they actually appreciate this way more than you just like babbling on the spot.
Yep, exactly.
Great. I'm just gonna be mindful of the time here. I think someone mentioned imposter syndrome before. Obviously, it's huge topic. Imposter syndrome is, it's real. I experienced that almost at any stage throughout my career, even today. So especially for those who are trying to break into design or product, you may also experience this. Are you good enough? How am I going to compete with other candidates? Or if you have your design job, you're working as a designer right now, are you doing a good job? We often feel all these fears. It's completely normal, but I think it's like having tools to support yourself. Like, what do you do when you feel those things? So for me, I recommend that you find your peers, peers that you trust. And also, if you have a good relationship with your manager, try to form a support system around yourself. So back in the days where I feel like, I'm not so sure if I'm actually competent. So what I usually did is go to my peers and, my support group, try to kind of share what my fears are. I know sometimes it's a bit daunting to be so vulnerable, but if you don't want to like rip your heart out, that's okay too. Maybe you just ask, what do you think of my strengths and weaknesses are? They might tell you something that you're pretty surprised at, some of the strengths that you're not aware of. I always thought I was a little awkward. I think I'm still pretty awkward, but people think, I'm really actually personable, approachable. That's new, because people might see you differently than how you see yourself because of a lot of fears inside of you, right? So asking feedback is extremely important, especially some of your, I think we usually are pretty harsh on ourselves. So we're usually aware of our weaknesses, but we're not aware of our strengths. So just have that support system is really good. And if you are getting feedback that, you could improve on, I don't know, proofreading your mock-up, then you can create an action plan, right? Your own roadmap in terms of how you can improve it, either using tools or just like you force yourself to check it 3 times before you hit the submit. You cannot just be on the go, right? So you can create a plan around yourself to see how you want to improve that. So that's kind of my recommendation. How about anybody in the group? Like, what's your biggest fear? What's the one thing that you often are scared about? Anything? I know we're too scared to be the first one who talks. Completely understand.
I can go first. All right. So, but my biggest fear is because like I'm leading my team, as you guys know, I'm leading my own team, and then my team doesn't know what the hell that I'm talking about. That's the biggest fear. That's the biggest fear of the leader, right? They do not understand what I'm asking them to do. I mean, like Louis here experience working with me because I'm the one that's directing him, and sometimes even he need to asking me, like, "Hey, Evan, is this correct? What you're asking?"
Yeah. That's normal and not exclusive, because for a lot of times I also didn't completely understand what my colleagues are saying, and I think that's when communication kicks in, right? Or you can joke about it, like, Evan, Did you get it? Like, did you get it at all? That type of thing is around of collaboration. And Ryan said, he's scared of being a poor representation of someone from a background. Totally. I think we give ourselves so much pressure, as maybe our parents also put in tons of effort to try to immigrate to the country you're in now, right? I want to make my parents proud. So in a sense, we give ourselves a lot of pressure as well. So it's tough. My communication skills don't translate my ideas. This one is also hard. I used to be pretty bad at like responding on the spot. I think maybe some people are pretty scared of what Evan's doing. He's answering things on the spot, jumping in, contributing towards the conversation on the spot. I think it just takes practice. So what I recommend, if you want to basically do that, I recommend you do it with your peers, again, with your support group, or join a community like this. Maybe you can start with something small, contribute towards, for the next event, the whiteboard challenge, like force yourself.
Exactly.
Maybe force is not a good word. Encourage yourself to at least give one, share one comment, one opinion, and then you will get more natural towards the end.
One thing that I can add into here is that, for example, hey, you have this idea, right? But you do not know how to communicate it. One thing that is good is you draw it. Sometimes when you write things down or you're drawing it, for example, hey, maybe put the button here rather than, hey, put the button on the top left, because like top left can be like top left on your left-hand side or top right on your, right-hand side. Is what I'm trying to say is that trying to draw things out so they can understand you better. Sometimes that worked for me. Well, most of the time worked for me.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. We're a designer, right? We're gravitated to visuals. I mean, humans are gravitated to visuals. That's a really, really good tip. Also for me, back in the days when I just started out as UX designer, in a lot of design meetings, I panicked, right? I was really anxious. Like, did I go through everything I needed to go through? So what I usually do is add tons of annotations, on my design mockup, things I need to ask, because I know I was going to forget if I don't write it down. So it's on the same screen, right? So that I could, draw, use arrow, whatever, highlight some areas they should focus on. So I know it takes a bit of more work to prep for the meeting, but it's totally worth it. And once you've done it enough times, maybe it's kind of embedded in your whole body. Then you just know, okay, I need to ask this kind of feedback I'm looking for. So again, takes practice. So join the next event, like promoting the event for free, the whiteboard challenge. That might be something you want to see how other people do it. Join a lot of events to see how other people do it. The way they do it may not be, your best way, but it's good to know what are the options out there. How can you facilitate those workshops?
Liz, you have to say you have a good answer. What's your answer? Come on, unmute yourself. Come. Yeah. For those of you who want to unmute yourself. No problem. This is conversational. It's not one-dimensional.
Okay, so I have an answer to that. So somebody was asking about how can teammates who are not immigrants be most supportive to those who are facing these challenges? And I have to say, I'm an immigrant. I'm here in Canada. I have lived in 4 different countries. They're very different countries in Australia, India, Chile, my country, and here. So I have worked in really different cultures. And currently I'm working in a company we are all from different countries. We are all immigrants. It's crazy, like the way we communicate is super different and all that. And I feel like many immigrants, and we work with immigrants offices. So I'm very involved in all this subject. And I feel like there is a big thing about immigrants, especially coming to any part in North America. Like the working culture is expecting you to fit in this, workplace. The way to work, how people work here, how people communicate here and all that. And I feel like immigrants sometimes we kind of try to do what they are telling us to do, and we kind of close our doors and lose sometimes our identity and what makes us unique. So instead of all the time trying to talk like you're supposed to be talking, to say the things you're supposed to be saying, sometimes bring some of that authenticity into your workplace. For example, if you are like even like you're too fast and people keep complaining like, whoa, calm down. You just explain, oh yeah, sorry, back in my country we used to do this. So if I'm doing this, please let me know. So you are educating them too. Like there is another way to do the same. This is my way. Maybe work, maybe it doesn't, but they will understand. So if we have to show that to them and stop being so afraid of showing that to other people.
Thank you for sharing, Liz. I think that's a really, really good point of, being true to yourself and sharing, your culture with others. That's like huge, because I don't know about US, but in Canada, there's actually 26% of the workers are immigrants, meaning like 1 in 4 of your colleagues are immigrants. They come from a different background. Maybe sometimes we try to distance ourselves too much also because we're afraid, right? Making friends with the locals. But maybe they're also really curious, about your culture. So I've seen teammates like baking their it's like snacks from their home country, bring into the team. There's a really nice, so really, really good point, Liz.
So I think CJ have one question there. Does the company or team value diversity we as immigrant or international student bring to the team? Will they think that we are an outsider and we don't know the current market?
Yeah, I can jump in. I'm more familiar, obviously, with the Canadian market. I don't think when they're doing resume screening, just attracting talent, I don't think they distinguish, this is someone, this is an immigrant. I don't think they do that because, as I said, it's so common. You cannot find a team without an immigrant anymore. So it's so common. I think the only maybe concern, at least for HR recruiter, to be concerned about is, do you have a valid work permit? If your visa is expiring, they might be concerned that it's bad for the company because you might leave after a year or so. So that's kind of the only thing. And it is true that, I don't know if when you apply to jobs, sometimes you ask what's your, where you come from and other stuff like that. Sometimes the company do want to promote diversity, but the proper way I've seen companies be doing it is try to include diverse candidates in the pool. They're not going to hire you because you come from Asia. I want to collect one Asian. I'm going to collect whatever, right? They're not going to do that. It's like very, very unethical and But the way they do it is just try to have at least a fair pool. So a candidate's pool, they maybe have someone with different background, but they go through the same interview process. And then they select the best one versus before, maybe the candidate pools is filled with, same type of people. So I think I've seen bigger company, or at least companies that care about diversity are trying to do that now. And I don't think they think us as an outsider. I think maybe us immigrants think ourselves as an outsider, and hence we have this type of barrier. How about others, Evan and Louis, or anybody in the group? This is kind of just my experience. How about your experience?
I think no. I think they value your diversity, especially in Expedia. We don't really sell like a airplane ticket just for US citizen or like for Canadian citizen. We sell it to everyone. You need to know everyone culture. Everyone are from different places. Travel is for everyone, not just for specific people, right? And even then, like, hey, I'm from Indonesia. They value me there, even though I need a visa. Yes, I do need a visa to stay here. They fought for it. They literally fight for it. Just they do not really see you as an outsider, but they see you as your ability and your value to the team. If you are good enough to be in that team, there's some procedure why you are good enough in that team and why they want you, and they will keep you there as long as they can, of course.
Yeah, outcome matters more.
Yeah.
If you can produce, why they will definitely keep you. And well, what I know, immigrants work way harder than anyone else.
Sometimes we work 50 hours a week, right? Like
way too hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is not a good culture to promote, just to, to put it out there.
They have like a, I don't know if it is just me, but that little sound behind your head that's saying, "Hey, yeah, if you don't do this one, you will not sleep tonight." That's happened to me
Our
all the
guilt
time.
is definitely waking up us up at night, which is unhealthy, but it's embedded. We have a few minutes. I just want to share one last point as what immigrants often struggle with as we move to a new country. We don't really know anyone. You may have a friend or family there, but that's kind of it. And we know that in order to secure a job, one of the most effective way is to get a referral, right? To at least land your first interview. So one thing I recommend, if you're new to the country, to maybe you move to a new city or you try to break in a new field like design, try to start networking. I know it's also a pretty, would you say, a foreign concept? I mean, we make friends differently back at home. So networking is kind of a new thing we need to adapt to. So I used to be pretty resistant, like, oh, I don't want to do networking. I don't want to do small chats. But I kind of try to see it differently now as like, maybe I'm just helping the community, like IterateUX. Now I get to know about Luis, Liz, and Evan, right? We learn about each other. In the future, if I have a job that needs maybe a designer who's really good with, I don't know, traveling type of thing, like, okay, Evan is the person that I can think of. So see networking as more a way of just putting yourself out there. You try to get to know each other, help each other out. More of like just chit chat, sales, selling yourself is not really that. But for those who are new to the country, highly, highly recommend start networking. I mentor a lot of mentees. They spend so much time on their portfolio, resume, which are important, but they forget that the whole hiring process is that I want to hire someone I can work with, right? So you want to show that who you are, your personality, like what Liz said, who you are, be authentic. So the best way to do that is, get to know each other, put yourself out there. So that's kind of one thing I want to urge immigrants like ourselves, like go make some, not, you don't have to make friends, but at least, get to know each other and let what others know what you're passionate about and what you do. That's kind of one thing I will recommend.
Hey everyone, on behalf of IterateUX, we would like to thank you so much for watching this week's event. If you like the content, please leave a like and subscribe. We'll have events every Thursday at 5:30 Pacific Time. Join our Discord in the description to find out more.